Bob Greenberger, a dear friend and a great journalist, passed away this year. Bob helped Nadine create the Daniel Pearl Investigative Journalism Initiative in 2010. It's in memory of the Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl, who was slain by terrorists in Pakistan in 2002. It's as important a project today as it was 12 years ago, maybe even more so, and I'm honored to serve on its advisory board. 5 years ago, Moment and the Greenberger family established an annual award in Bob's honor to recognize journalists who have fearlessly contributed to principled independent journalism. It's been given to Jake Tapper, Jane Mayer, Evan Osnos, Michelle Martin, and last year to Adam Serwer. Before we present this year's award, Bob's son Scott is going to tell you about his father.
Thank you, Robert. My father was the quintessential journalist. For 2 decades, he traveled the globe for the Wall Street Journal, covering civil wars in Central America, the first Gulf War, efforts to broker peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors, the fall of the Soviet Union, and the end of the Cold War. He loved reporting, and his stories were always fair and unbiased. When my father retired from the Journal, he wrote stories for Moment. Most importantly, he helped found the Daniel Pearl Investigative Journalism Initiative at Moment to honor his friend and colleague, Danny Pearl. I want to thank Moment not only for the Robert S. Greenberger Journalism Award, initially in my father's honor and now in his memory, but also for their friendship and support to my family during his illness. And I want to thank them for their commitment to the Daniel Pearl Investigative Journalism Initiative. My father cared deeply about this project, and we hope that you will all support it. This year, we are presenting the 2022 award to Emily Bazelon, a staff writer for the New York Times Magazine, whose work focuses on law, women, and family issues.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, we're so happy to have you with us. And first of all, congratulations on being awarded Moment's 2022 Robert S. Greenberger Journalism Award.
Thank you. I'm very honored and deeply appreciate the award.
And we're happy to have you here to honor you and also, of course, to talk about your work. So when I think about your work, I don't think this was the official, these were the official words on the award, but when I think about your work, the two words that come to mind are bravery and nuance. I would say you've written about some of the most sensitive and emotional topics in the news, from abortion to transgender politics, from bullying in schools to the criminal justice system. And what jumps out at me as a reader is first your bravery in taking these on, because they are quite daunting as topics to write about, I would think. And secondly, your ability to deliver something genuinely nuanced that teaches us something new. So I wonder if, just to start out, you would talk about how, first of all, how you learned your craft and how you were drawn to write about these things, and how do you strive for a balanced approach to these highly contested areas?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I love those two adjectives, and I will try to live up to them. I learned my craft in a sort of haphazard way, which I think is true for a lot of journalists. Journalism isn't a licensed profession. It's really a trade in a lot of ways. And I think many of us have some help from teachers in school. And I had a wonderful instructor when I was at Yale College, Fred Strebe, who has taught so many great journalists. He teaches, or taught, I should say, a magazine writing kind of narrative long form class, and I learned a lot from him. But I think a lot of times we learn on the job. And so my first job was at a daily newspaper that doesn't exist anymore. It's called the Tri-Valley Herald. It was in California. And it was a funny place to work because the reporters tended to be people like me, who'd recently gotten out of college and were very eager. And the editors had been around the block a few times, and I think we were sort of irritating often in our intensity, shall we say. But I learned there how to be a reporter, and the importance of just going out of the office to talk to people or picking up the phone a million times, and how to look for stories.
Where would you say, looking back, where would you say are places your reporting has made a concrete difference? I know you've been involved in some exonerations of people in wrongfully incarcerated. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I want to start, if you don't mind, by telling you a quick story about a piece that I wrote while I was in law school. So, my first year after law school, I worked as an intern at the Washington Post as a reporter. And I had a classmate, Tal Clement, who didn't have 10 full fingers. And he was not an American citizen, so he was trying to get citizenship. And he was caught in this truly endless bureaucratic loop where he couldn't give a set of full fingerprints. He just wasn't physically able. And at the time, we were talking about the INS, and they sort of didn't seem to be able to figure out how to divert him into some way out of this cul-de-sac he was stuck in. And his congresswoman had tried to advocate on his behalf, and it had not worked. And I wrote a piece about this for the Washington Post. And the next day, there was a press conference on the steps of the INS building in San Francisco where Tal was, and he was being welcomed into the building. And yes, they could figure out how to process his citizenship application. And I'm glad to report that he is a lawyer, I think a public defender or a defense lawyer in San Francisco, and an amazing person. That was one of my first tastes of being able to actually have an impact. And in some ways, it's like the most direct impact I think I've ever had. But you're right. I have written about, in particular, one case, Utico Briley. A couple of years ago, Utico heard me talking about my book about criminal justice on the radio. And at the time, he was incarcerated in Louisiana. And he wrote me a letter saying that he was innocent, and also explaining that he had a 60-year sentence for an armed robbery in which no one had been injured. And I wrote back to him, and I helped him find a lawyer. That lawyer turned out to be my sister, Laura, who did an amazing job advocating for him. And then I wrote about what turned out to be his exoneration. And that was an amazing, for me, I think, really profound project to work on because of Utico's force of will. He really was fighting for himself. I was one of many people he wrote to looking for help. And every step of the way, he was just, insisting not just on his innocence, but that other people help him prove it. And so that was a very moving experience and a kind of untraditional experience for me to have as a reporter.
Emily, congratulations on being the recipient of the Robert S. Greenberger Award for Journalism.
And we're so glad to celebrate with you Moment Magazine's 47 years of excellence in journalism. So what many people know about Emily is that she's witty, insightful, and full of really interesting and creative ideas.
She pursues the truth and justice and goes deep in her research and work to make this world a better place for all of us to live in.
But what many people don't know about Emily is that she can make an incredibly intricate lattice pie crust.
She's also a pro at knitting.
And she can read the Torah with very little prompting. Super impressive.
Emily, we are so thrilled to be here with you tonight to celebrate this award. Congratulations.